For years, bamboo stood quietly on the edges of farms, roads, and forests, bending with the wind, ignored by most people who walked past it every single day. It wasn't rare, it wasn't flashy, and it certainly didn't look like money. In Ghana, just like in many parts of the world, bamboo was treated as background noise in nature, useful for a few rural needs, maybe good for fencing or simple structures, but never something you would associate with billion-dollar potential. And that's exactly why this story is so powerful, because real revolutions don't always begin with something new. Sometimes they begin when someone finally looks closely at what's already there. What changed wasn't the plant itself. Bamboo didn't suddenly evolve or become stronger overnight. What changed was perspective. Ghana began asking a different question, not at what do we lack, but at what do we already have? And when leaders, researchers, and innovators started studying bamboo seriously, they discovered something the world had overlooked. This fast-growing plant wasn't just sustainable. It was incredibly versatile. It could be turned into construction materials, furniture, flooring, paper, charcoal, textiles, and even export-grade industrial products. It grew faster than timber, required fewer chemicals, regenerated naturally, and thrived in local conditions. In other words, it wasn't just grass, it was green gold. Once that realization took hold, bamboo stopped being invisible. It became strategic. Ghana began investing in structured cultivation value chains, processing facilities, and market development. Farmers who once saw bamboo as wild growth began to see it as a dependable crop. Entrepreneurs saw raw material where others once saw weeds. Investors saw scalability. And slowly, almost quietly, an entire ecosystem started forming around something that had always been there. This is where the story becomes bigger than bamboo itself. Because Ghana's move wasn't just about exploiting a plant. It was about challenging a mindset that says wealth must come from oil, gold, or foreign aid. Bamboo represented a shift away from waiting for external solutions and toward unlocking internal potential. It proved that economic power doesn't always come from digging deeper into the ground. It can come from growing smarter above it. As production scaled and industries emerged, the numbers began to speak. What started as an overlooked natural resource evolved into an industry valued at over $1 billion. That figure shocked many outside the country. But inside Ghana, it told a deeper story. It told the story of how value is created, not discovered. How vision can turn familiarity into fortune. How countries that appear resource-poor on paper can, in reality, be resource-rich in disguise. And perhaps the most inspiring part of this transformation is how ordinary it began. No miracle imports, no sudden technological leap, just a decision to take something familiar seriously. To research it, organize it, invest in it, and connect it to global markets. Bamboo became proof that development doesn't always require reinventing the wheel. Sometimes it requires redefining what the wheel is worth. This first step set the foundation for everything that followed. Once Ghana proved that bamboo could generate real economic value, it opened the door to jobs, sustainability, exports, and global attention. But none of that would have been possible without this initial shift in thinking, from seeing bamboo as a just grass to recognizing it as a national asset. And that lesson, more than the money itself, is what truly shocked the world. Once bamboo was recognized as valuable, the impact didn't stay confined to farms or research papers. It moved straight into people's lives. What Ghana triggered next was not just an industry, but a chain reaction, one that connected villages to cities, workers to markets, and economic growth to environmental responsibility. It grew roots in communities, and those roots started changing everyday realities. As cultivation expanded, jobs followed naturally. Farmers began managing bamboo plantations with long-term certainty, knowing this wasn't a one-season crop, but a renewable source of income. Harvesters, processors, transporters, craftsmen, factory workers all became part of a growing ecosystem. Unlike extractive industries that employ a limited few, bamboo spread opportunity wide. It created work at multiple levels of skill, from rural labor to advanced manufacturing, allowing entire communities to participate in the value chain rather than watching wealth pass them by. What made this economic shift even more powerful was how quickly bamboo fed into multiple industries. Construction companies began using bamboo-based materials that were strong, flexible, and cost-effective. Furniture and interior design markets embraced it for both local use and export. Bamboo charcoal and bioenergy reduced reliance on expensive and environmentally damaging alternatives. Even waste from processing was reused, ensuring almost nothing was lost. Instead of building one factory, Ghana was building an interconnected system where one output became another input, multiplying value at every step. And all of this happened without sacrificing the environment. In fact, the environment benefited. Bamboo grows rapidly, absorbs large amounts of carbon dioxide, and helps prevent soil erosion. While traditional industries often force countries to choose between growth and conservation, Ghana's bamboo economy proved that the two could reinforce each other. As production increased, forests were protected, degraded land was restored, and pressure on slow-growing timber resources was reduced. Economic expansion didn't come at the cost of nature. It came with nature. This balance is what truly caught global attention. At a time when the world is struggling to find sustainable models of development, Ghana presented something practical, not theoretical. Bamboo wasn't a future promise. It was already working. It showed that sustainability doesn't have to slow progress. When managed correctly, it can accelerate it. Countries watched as Ghana turned environmental responsibility into a competitive advantage rather than a limitation. Perhaps the most remarkable part is how resilient this model is. Bamboo regenerates quickly, requires minimal chemical inputs, and thrives in local climates. That means lower production costs, reduced dependency on imports, and greater economic stability. When global supply chains are disrupted, a locally rooted industry like this doesn't collapse, it adapts. And that resilience translates into confidence both for local workers and international partners. As exports grew and the industry matured, the bamboo economy began generating serious revenue, contributing to national growth while maintaining its green foundation. But behind the numbers were real human stories. Families with stable incomes, young people finding work at home instead of migrating, entrepreneurs building businesses around something sustainable and proudly Ghanaian. This wasn't growth that felt distant or abstract. It was growth people could see, touch, and live. And that's why this phase of Ghana's bamboo journey matters so much. It proved that development doesn't have to be loud, destructive, or short-lived. It can be steady, regenerative, and inclusive. By rooting economic ambition and sustainability, Ghana didn't just build an industry, it built a model. One that challenges the old idea that nations must damage their future to improve their present. Instead, Ghana showed the world that when you grow your economy the right way, it keeps growing back. As Ghana's bamboo economy began to take shape and the results became impossible to ignore, the story naturally traveled beyond its borders. Other nations started paying attention, not just because of the money involved, but because of what the success represented. This wasn't a tale of sudden oil discovery or foreign corporations swooping in with ready-made solutions. It was a homegrown transformation, and that's why it landed as a wake-up call, especially for Africa and the wider global South. For a long time, many countries have been told, directly or indirectly, that their development depends on what they can extract or what others are willing to invest in them. And that mindset creates dependence. Ghana's bamboo journey quietly challenged that narrative. It showed that progress doesn't always begin with importing expertise or chasing scarce resources. Sometimes it starts by believing that what you already have, your land, your climate, your people, your overlooked materials, is enough to build something meaningful. The world often talks about Africa as a continent of potential, but potential without action means very little. Ghana turned potential into proof. Bamboo was not unique to Ghana. It grows in many African countries and across the global South. What was unique was the decision to treat it as a strategic national opportunity. That choice alone separated Ghana from countless nations sitting on similar resources, waiting for someone else to tell them what they're worth. This success also disrupted another deeply rooted assumption, that innovation must come from the outside. Ghana didn't copy a model designed for Europe or Asia. It adapted knowledge to local realities. It built value chains that fit its workforce, climate, and markets. That kind of innovation is often underestimated because it doesn't look like cutting-edge technology, but in reality, it's some of the most powerful innovation there is, practical, scalable, and grounded in real needs. As international observers took notice, Ghana's bamboo industry became more than an economic case study. It became a mirror. Modern nations began asking uncomfortable questions. If Ghana can do this with bamboo, what are we ignoring? What resources have we dismissed as too common, too simple, or not valuable enough? And more importantly, what would happen if we stopped waiting for permission to build with what we already have? This is where the lesson grows bigger than economics. A Ghana story is about confidence. It's about leadership that chooses long-term value over short-term wins. It's about redefining success on your own terms instead of measuring it by external approval. The bamboo industry didn't just generate revenue, it reshaped how Ghana is seen and how Ghanaians see themselves. It reinforced the idea that development doesn't have to mimic anyone else's path to be legitimate. For the global South, many of these countries share similar challenges: young populations, environmental pressure, limited industrial infrastructure, and untapped natural resources. Ghana's model offers a different way forward, one that doesn't demand sacrificing the environment, accumulating unsustainable debt, or exporting raw materials at low value. It shows that with vision and organization, local resources can compete globally. And perhaps the most important impact of all is psychological. When one country proves that transformation is possible without waiting for rescue, it inspires others to imagine the same for themselves. Ghana's bamboo story doesn't tell the world what to do. It simply asks a question that's hard to ignore. If they can turn something so ordinary into something extraordinary, what's stopping the rest of us? That question lingers, and it's why this story matters far beyond Ghana. Because once belief shifts, action follows. And once action follows, entire futures can change. Ghana didn't just shock the world with a billion-dollar industry. It reminded it that the greatest breakthroughs often begin the moment we stop underestimating what's already in our hands.